A 3-month-long I-Team investigation has raised questions about the cozy relationship between Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan and a state vendor with a contract worth some $14 million.
The I-Team found Duncan negotiated the sale of his own healthcare app concept with a state healthcare vendor called Sharecare. Duncan's spokesperson told us the deal did not go through.
Well, Fox 5 senior I-Team reporter Dale Russell says there was a lot more interaction than just one possible business deal. Dale?
Russ, that's right. Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan wrote me to say he holds himself to the highest ethical standards and is a citizen legislator with one foot in the private sector. And we found that private sector includes a Georgia state health care vendor, Sharecare. Last December, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan arrived at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. We had been told Duncan was in New York for a personal meeting with a state health care vendor called Sharecare. But 2 months later, Duncan didn't seem to remember much about the trip. You flew up in December of last year to meet with Sharecare in New York.
I'll have to go back and look at the records of that.
You don't remember flying to New York to meet with Sharecare?
We've taken several trips up to New York. I'll have to go back and look at the records.
He wasn't the only one whose memory of that trip seemed a little hazy. This is Sharecare's president.
We have an office in New York, but I'm not aware of what that trip is.
A forgetful trip for an important state vendor. Taxpayers pay Sharecare around $14 million a year to provide a digital healthcare platform to state employees. It's a way to manage their healthcare all in one place.
I'm the founder of Sharecare.
The Sharecare co-founders are well-known Atlanta entrepreneur Jeff Arnold and heart surgeon and TV personality Dr. Mehmet Oz. Why would Georgia's lieutenant governor be involved? I wanted to talk to you about your business relationship with Sharecare. The I-Team got a tip that Lieutenant Governor Duncan was trying to do business with Sharecare. Specifically, he was trying to sell a healthcare app concept to the state vendor.
Be as transparent as humanly possible.
It seemed possible. Duncan has worked in healthcare. He's currently on the board of directors of another digital healthcare company, Wellview, according to their website. But he says he had no deal with Sharecare.
I've been in the healthcare space for a long time. Been in the wellness space. And I have no business relationship with Sharecare.
And Sharecare's president said not only no deal, but no talk of a deal.
I can assure you I'm president of the company. We have no deal with Lieutenant Governor Duncan.
And no negotiations.
And no negotiations.
No talk about doing a deal.
Not that I was involved in, no.
Really? Well, 2 weeks later, that no became a yes. Duncan's private attorney and his public relations specialist called me to admit the lieutenant governor did try to sell a healthcare app concept to Sharecare, and they say the deal didn't go through. And just today, the spokesman called to recharacterize the negotiations, now saying they were just conversations between two friends, the lieutenant governor and state vendor CEO Jeff Arnold. He claims the Sharecare president, Don Whaley, wasn't part of the conversations.
You only hide things that you don't want people to know.
Edward Queen is an ethics professor at Emory University.
If it had been completely above board and legal for the lieutenant governor to be engaged in these negotiations, why did they feel a need to hide it?
But our 3-month-long investigation raised more questions about the cozy relationship between Lieutenant Governor Duncan and Sharecare. Sometimes it was accepting a gift. Like last October, Duncan and his family sat in these front row Hawk seats as guests of Sharecare. Lieutenant Governor Duncan's spokesperson told me the Duncan sat in those seats 3 times.
Shot clock at 5.
Duncan's spokesman said the tickets were offered because of a personal friendship between the lieutenant governor and the Sharecare founder, and the gifts had nothing to do with the lieutenant governor's public sector role.
While I'm opposed to gifts as a rule, I'm definitely opposed to gifts that aren't reported and aren't made public.
Sometimes it was giving a gift. Last October, Duncan flew Sharecare founder Jeff Arnold and Arnold's wife on this private jet to St. Louis for a fundraising event and a Braves playoff game. The flight was paid for by his campaign and an independent committee linked to him.
Is it a minimum unseemly and inappropriate?
And sometimes it was a trip. Sharecare brought you out to Montana.
Along with the governor, that's correct.
It was beautiful.
like the West Creek Ranch in Montana. Some 6,000 acres of primeval forest and pristine rivers. Who paid for the trip?
I'll have to go back and look. I don't know. I think our team coordinated with the governor's team and other folks around the state.
But you don't know who paid for it?
We'll have to go back and look at the records.
Remember, ShareCare is a state vendor with a contract worth around $14 million or so a year. They put on a 4-day healthcare conference called Accelerating Wellbeing in Georgia at the West Creek Ranch. The ranch is a subsidiary of AMB West, the holding company for Arthur Blank's business interests in Montana. The foundation donated the ranch, lodging, food, and on-site activities for the week to ShareCare, as they believe outdoor activities stimulate ideas that included horseback riding, yoga, golf, skeet shooting, and fly fishing. ShareCare invited 4 state employees plus the lieutenant governor and Governor Brian Kemp, who made one presentation and returned the next day.
Wow, it was an incredible opportunity to meet with a number of people, including the governor. It's just amazing to think about all of the innovations. Oh, thank you.
But it's a week-long trip at a ranch, Lieutenant Governor. Edward Queen says the conference itself may be appropriate, but he's troubled that the sponsor, ShareCare, is the same state vendor that seems so intertwined with the lieutenant governor.
Most charitably, the guy is naive and unthinking. Much less charitably, this is an individual who has taken upon himself to use the trappings of his office as a way to gain an unfortunate number of personal and private benefits.
Now, the lieutenant governor's spokesman claims Jeff Duncan paid ShareCare back for those expensive Hawks tickets after we asked about them. They have not provided any documentation to confirm that. Lieutenant Governor also wrote to say he consults his legal team before he makes any business decisions to make sure he stays within the law, and he blames all of this on a former aide he claims is feeding the media, with his words, a false narrative and attacking his character. Russ, Courtney?
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of sharing of benefits and perks going back and forth. Was there any cost to taxpayers in all this?
Actually, there is. The trip to Montana, because so many people went, you also have executive protection that goes. It was around $5,500 that the taxpayers picked up. And when Lieutenant Governor Duncan went to New York, he also has to have executive protection with him, even though it was a personal trip, not a trip for the taxpayers per se, or not as Lieutenant Governor. And that costs a few $100s in flight there. So there are some taxpayer costs with all of this, and we're still looking at that.
All right.
Dale, thank you very much.
Thanks.